Okay, so today we are doing a deep dive into something pretty remarkable, maybe one of the smartest financial plays in entertainment history, maybe ever.
Oh, yeah. What are we looking at?
Larry David, co-creator of Seinfeld. And here's the thing that gets me, the paradox we really need to unpack. He walked away from Seinfeld in 1996, like right when it was the biggest thing on the planet. Cultural juggernaut, ratings through the roof.
Right. Season 7 ends, huge cliffhanger, and poof, he's kind of gone from the day-to-day.
Exactly. But, and this is the wild part, almost 30 years later, he's still making, over $40 million a year from that show?
That's the number you hear.
Yeah.
North of 40 million. And it's crucial to understand this isn't curb money. This isn't new stuff. This is the Seinfeld engine just printing cash for him passively.
So how does that even work? How do you get that kind of permanent leverage from something you haven't really touched since the Clinton administration? That's what we're digging into.
It's a masterclass, really. A masterclass in walking away, strangely enough. But also in setting things up right from the start.
Right. It's about the long game, the money mindset, that decision to leave, which everyone thought was, crazy.
That'd be nuts, yeah.
It wasn't about quitting. It was about mastering the ownership game.
Precisely. See, Hollywood genius isn't just writing brilliant jokes, though he obviously did that. The real genius here is understanding the business side, the structure.
Okay.
Larry David wasn't just thinking about his next paycheck, even though it would have been enormous. He was thinking about equity, future equity.
So for you listening, this is the mission today. We're peeling back the curtain on back-end wealth, what it means, how syndication works, and the massive difference between being a top earner, like an employee,
and being an owner.
Yeah.
An owner of the asset itself. It's about the fine print, the deal structure that dictates if your work pays you once or if it pays you forever.
Okay, let's get into that core financial decision then, because people hear the big $40 million number, but the how is the real story.
It starts with that title. Co-creator, not just writer, not just producer, co-creator.
And that distinction means what exactly in contract terms?
Leverage. It means when they were first setting up the show, and later when its success was undeniable, he wasn't just negotiating salary or standard writer residuals. He was in position to demand and get back-end equity.
Back-end equity. Let's define that because it sounds jargony, but it's the whole game here, isn't it?
It is. It's the invisible wealth. Basically, for a huge hit like Seinfeld, it means getting a percentage of the show's profits, specifically from all the future licensing, the syndication deals, streaming, DVDs back in the day, you name it.
Okay, so different from residuals, because writers get residuals, right?
Totally different scale. Residuals are usually small, fixed payments when an episode re-airs. Think, a few $100, maybe a few thousand, depending. Back-end equity means you own a piece of the whole pie after the network costs are covered, sometimes even a piece of the gross.
A piece of the gross. That sounds significant.
It is. Because when a show like Seinfeld gets sold into syndication, meaning local TV stations, buy the rights to air reruns forever, the numbers are astronomical.
Okay, give us a sense of scale. What were those first syndication deals worth?
Well, back in the late 90s, the first couple of rounds of syndication sales for Seinfeld reportedly topped $1.7 billion.
Wow. Okay, $1.7 billion with a B.
With a B. And that was just the start. That was before international sales really kicked in, before streaming even existed.
And because David had negotiated that back-end percentage.
He gets a slice of that massive pie. He essentially asked the question that, seems simple, but most people under pressure forget to ask. Okay, this is great now, but what happens after the show stops airing first run? What happens when it becomes an asset to be sold?
That focus on the future, not just the present paycheck. The network wanted to pay him huge money to stay, to keep writing.
Highest salaries ever. Bravo. But he was thinking about the library value, the asset value of the work already done.
Ownership versus income.
That's the core takeaway. And that's why the money keeps flowing. Every time Seinfeld gets relicensed, the big move to Hulu a few years back, then the even bigger deal with Netflix recently.
Right. Huge streaming deals.
Every single time, his share of that revenue kicks in. It's like owning a piece of real estate that keeps getting rented out for higher and higher prices. Passive income generated by the intellectual property itself.
But hang on, let me push back a bit here. Is this strategy actually replicable? I mean, this is Seinfeld, one of the biggest hits of all time. He had insane leverage. What about, a normal writer or creator?
That's a fair point. The scale is obviously unique to something like Seinfeld, but the mindset isn't. It's about understanding where the long-term value lies in what you create.
Okay.
Whether you're writing code, designing graphics, making music, whatever, you have to ask, is there a piece of this that can be licensed? Can I get a small percentage of future revenue, even if it means taking less money up front?
So it's about the principle, the structure, not necessarily becoming a multimillionaire overnight.
Exactly. Don't just trade your hours for dollars today. Think about how your output can become an asset that generates value tomorrow. It's about structuring the deal for endurance.
That really reframes it. Okay, let's talk about the timing of his exit. Because leaving in May '96, right after season 7, that looked like sabotage to most people.
Oh, absolutely. The show was a cultural phenomenon, record viewership. Critics loved it. The network, NBC, was desperate to keep him involved, offering him the moon, probably.
And he just quietly steps back from the daily grind. Why? Why leave then?
It seemed like madness, right? Walking away from the guaranteed money, the fame, the influence. But I think David understood something fundamental about value creation and maybe about himself.
Which is?
That once you've built something incredibly valuable, you have to protect it. And sometimes protecting it means stepping away before you dilute it or burn out.
How does leaving protect the asset, though? Wouldn't the show get worse without him?
It's a risk, sure. But think about the alternative. Long-running shows often face creative fatigue. The writing can get stale, the characters become caricatures.
Yeah, you see that happen.
By leaving after season 7, arguably when the show was still firing on all cylinders, he helped preserve the quality of the Seinfeld library. He ensured that the asset he owned those first 7 seasons, largely under his guidance, remained pristine, classic television.
So it wasn't just about his own burnout. It was about protecting the long-term value of the IP itself, making sure the reruns people would watch for decades were the good ones.
Precisely. It's strategic detachment. He preserved the brand, the quality, which in turn made those syndication and streaming deals much, much more valuable down the line.
And crucially, he stepped away from the writing room, the stress, the pressure.
The suffering, as he often put it.
Right, the suffering. But he never gave up his ownership stake, his piece of the back end.
Never. That was the genius. Stop the grind, but keep the income stream flowing from the system he'd built. Let the asset work for him.
Okay, that idea of suffering is interesting. Where did this willingness to walk away, to demand ownership, even come from? It feels like it wasn't just about Seinfeld.
No, I think you have to look at his history before Seinfeld. It wasn't an overnight success story. Far from it.
Right, the early years. He struggled for a long time.
Decades, really. Working on jobs, limo driver, clerical work, trying stand-up and bombing. He wasn't just, finding inspiration in these jobs. He was doing them to survive.
And all that time observing, taking notes on the little frustrations, the awkwardness.
Yeah, and developing a tolerance for discomfort, for failure.
That famous Saturday Night Live story comes to mind. He was a writer there in the mid-'80s.
Yep, and almost none of his sketches ever made it to air. Imagine that, week after week, pitching ideas, writing them, and just rejection. In front of Lorne Michaels, the cast, your peers.
Brutal.
He apparently got one sketch on, just one, and it aired at 12:50 a.m., literally the last slot before the show signed off.
Wow. Most people would have packed it in after that.
Many would have, but he didn't. He stuck with it. He kept enduring that feeling of failure, of not quite fitting in.
So how does that connect to the Seinfeld negotiations? Going from rejected writer to, equity kingpin?
It's about leverage, but internal leverage. Because he had survived years of failure and living on very little, he wasn't desperate when success finally came.
Okay.
When NBC was waving huge paychecks at him in the 90s, he wasn't easily seduced by the money or the immediate comfort. He'd already proven to himself he could survive being uncomfortable.
So that gave him the strength, the discipline maybe, to hold out for what he really wanted, which wasn't just cash, it was ownership.
Exactly. He had mined his own pain, his neuroses, his awkwardness, and turned it into comedic gold for Seinfeld. He basically learned that sitting with discomfort, analyzing it, could be incredibly profitable creatively.
And he applied that same endurance to the business side.
Right. He could sit in that negotiation room, face the pressure from the network, wanting him to just take the big salary and hold his ground for the long-term deal, the ownership deal. He outlasted them in a way.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly to this idea of quiet power. Because Jerry Seinfeld was obviously the face, the star, the guy on screen.
Absolutely. The visibility was all Jerry.
But Larry David was the architect, right? The source code, the soul of the show, maybe? His sensibility fundamentally changed TV comedy. That focus on awkwardness, on the minutia, on discomfort rather than just jokes.
Yeah, that shift towards character-based, observational, often uncomfortable realism. A lot of that comes directly from him. His power was influential, but often invisible to the average viewer.
And that ties back to the 1996 exit too, doesn't it? The desire for freedom over fame?
I think so. By 96, he'd reached the absolute peak of conventional success. But sources suggest he felt trapped by it. The pressure to maintain that level, the grind of the writer's room, he called it suffering. He wanted out, not because he failed, but because success itself had become the burden.
He wanted his time back. He wanted freedom from the success machine he'd built.
Freedom to create something else, or maybe just freedom to not create on demand. And look what happened after he got that financial security.
Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Comes along in 2000.
Exactly. A show built entirely on his terms. Maximum creative freedom, total ownership, no network notes, just pure, unadulterated Larry David. Done for the joy of it, presumably.
And Curb was, and is, hugely successful and acclaimed in its own right.
Absolutely. Creatively fulfilling, commercially successful. But here's the kicker. The quiet truth beneath it all.
Go on.
Even with Curb's success, the financial engine, the primary source of that massive annual income we talked about, remains Seinfeld. And it still does.
Wow. So the back-end deal from the 90s still dwarfs the income from his ongoing hit show.
That's what the numbers suggest, and that just highlights the incredible durability of that original strategy. Think about all the disruption the entertainment industry has seen since 1996.
Oh, yeah. DVDs came and went, cable bundles collapsed, streaming wars, writer strikes.
Everything changed. But his Seinfeld income stream, pretty much bulletproof. Why? Because it was built on owning timeless IP, secured by smart contracts. It wasn't dependent on market hype or being hot, or even on his continued daily effort.
Ownership compounds. Attention is fragile. That's a great way to put it.
He set up the structure, protected the asset by leaving early, and then just let the value compound over decades. He proved you don't have to be the loudest voice or the most visible person to have the most enduring power. Sometimes the real power is quiet ownership.
So wrapping this up, the blueprint we've kind of uncovered here from Larry David's story is, well, it's that real lasting success isn't just about working hard or being brilliant creatively.
Although that helps.
Right, it helps. But it's also fundamentally about understanding the structure, the deals, specifically negotiating for that back-end equity, that piece of the long-term value.
He proved you don't need to stay in the room forever if you own a piece of the room itself.
And it really challenges how we usually think about ambition, doesn't it?
Completely. We tend to think ambition means climbing higher, staying visible, maximizing the now. His story suggests maybe the real goal of success isn't just more success, but freedom.
Building something that lasts, that takes care of you, frees you up.
Frees up your time, which is the ultimate asset, right? So the question for you, listening, maybe becomes, what are you building today?
Are you chasing the applause, the immediate reward?
Or are you thinking about ownership, about creating something, structuring something that will still be generating value, still taking care of you 10, 20 years down the road?
Even when you're no longer actively working on it.
Yeah. Because sometimes, as Larry David showed, the quietest moves end up making the loudest and longest lasting echoes.